Hello, welcome back to my allotment garden. We're actually down here at the very bottom end of the garden today to talk a little bit about my new raised bed and how I'm going to be planting it out with lots of shade loving crops, and we'll also mention what sort of soil mix I've used in here as well. So before my raised bed was here, it used to be where my compost bin was situated, that I've now moved over into the corner because I want to make more use of this space. I want to grow as much as I can where I can. So I built this raised bed over the last month, given it a lick of paint and then filled it with lots of different compost mix in there. But there is a little problem because this spot doesn't actually get that much sunlight during the day. Because we've got the shed there behind me and there's quite a large tree in this corner, the sun rises in the east over in this direction, so by the time it gets to midday I've only got a couple of hours of direct sunlight on this bed before it then goes behind the tree, and then it gets just dappled shade throughout the rest of the day. So I'm going to be planting this up for things that actually do like the shade. Things that flower and fruit generally require quite a lot of sunshine to do that. They need that energy from the sun to push into those flowers and those fruits. But things that don't do that generally get on okay with a bit of shade. So I've got here lots of salad babies, lots of beetroot, lots of lettuce that I'm going to be planting up for this area. And I think they're going to do quite well here, because in the past I've planted things like lettuce in the centre of my plot. In the middle of summer, when it gets really hot and really dry, the plants get stressed, they don't like it. So they then bolt, which means they go to seed, and then you don't really have much lettuce left because it tastes bitter and it's not really usable once it's gone to seed, unless you want to keep the seed, of course. So it struggles. Lettuce struggles in the middle of my plot. So I think it's going to do really well here in the shade where it's a little bit cooler. And I've got other things to grow as well. I've got a perennial sorrel as well to grow. I've actually put a little trellis at the back, some hazel sticks that I cut back from my shrub in the winter time. And I'm going to try growing either peas or beans, I haven't quite decided yet, just to test the limits, because they might be okay in this spot, but you know what, we'll just give it a try, see how it does this year, and then I can always change the plan for next year. So what sort of soil have I got in this bed? Because it is quite a deep bed and it'd be quite expensive to fill if I was just to go out and buy all the materials, which I wasn't prepared to do, and especially we're still in lockdown, so most of the shops have been closed for the last month and it's been quite difficult to get hold of materials. So what I've done is made use of a lot of things that I already have here on the allotment. So the bottom section is actually filled with leaf mould. When I was moving out my compost bin and the area behind it, I found lots of bags of leaf mould, some of which haven't actually broken down that much in the last couple of years. The leaves were still quite big, but otherwise, you know, it's still going to bulk it out and give it a little bit of organic matter, which is really important. I also emptied the compost bin, so there's lots of homemade compost in here, which is going to be really rich in nutrients, and it's got lots of life in there as well, with lots of invertebrates and insects. It's all really going to give it a good boost. I've then got a few bags of peat-free compost, and then there's quite a bit of topsoil in here that I got locally from my local area, from people who are having their gardens redone. So they put a notice up saying, you know, free topsoil on the drive, come and collect it. So it was all very socially distanced, it was all very good, but I got it from 2 places, which is quite important, because if you're going to fill up a raised bed with topsoil, you want as many different topsoils as possible to get that mix of microbial activity. So that's what's in here. It's mostly topsoil with a lot of organic matter as well from the leaf mould and the homemade compost. And yeah, I think the plants are going to do really well in here. So let's plant it out. So this here is actually my sorrel plant, and it's a perennial, which means it comes back year after year. And it's great for putting in salads. It's got quite a fresh, zesty type of flavour. It's quite sour, quite lemony, so it's good for salads. And I don't want it in my main growing zone anymore because I keep rotating my beds. This would come back year after year in the wrong place, so I needed it in its own dedicated patch where I don't need to move it anymore. And as you can see, it's got quite a hefty root system already, which is one of the reasons why I made this bed quite deep, because I want to grow things like this sorrel and also chard, spinach. They both end up with quite a humongous root system by the end of the growing season. So I wanted it to be nice and deep, so it's also going to retain all that moisture. It's not going to dry out too quickly. So my sorrel plant will be much happier when it's in a space where it's not going to get moved every year, and it could just relax and enjoy growing in a little bit of shade. I've then got lots of beetroot. This variety is called bull's blood, so I'm going to plant those. I've then got this peppermint chard, which grows a very bright pink stem, and it's going to look absolutely amazing when it's grown, but they're still quite baby at the moment. They're still quite small, so hopefully they won't get eaten by the slugs, but I'll keep a few backups in the polytunnel just in case. I've then got these red Solix lettuce plants in my soil blocks. These are ready to go out, as well as some spring onions and some chives. I've also got some golden beetroot. These ones are called Bol d'Or, so they've got a very yellow orange type of beetroot rather than your traditional purple, so they're going to contrast quite nicely with the reddish beetroot. And then we've got a whole load of different salads here. This flashy oak one is absolutely beautiful, that's speckled red on the green. We've got some red Solix again, as well as some ruffled sole, and at the end there I've got some purple basil, which might not get planted out here because it does like it a little bit warmer, might stay in the polytunnel. So yes, lots of lettuce there. And finally we've also got some perpetual spinach, and these are also still quite young. We can also sow some seeds direct as well, things like radish. They'll grow quite happily here, so I might get out the seed box as well. So now I'm just going to play around and plant these out and yeah, see how we go. So I've already planted out my lettuce. That's sort of alternating between the flashy oak and the red versions, which are either ruffled sole or red Solix, just to give it a nice little contrast. So what I'm going to plant next is my beetroot. Ooh, reach for my hori hori, which is a great tool. It's a Japanese garden knife, great for planting out, weeding, that kind of thing. I'm absolutely loving it at the minute. Great for making little holes. So this is my bull's bud beetroot, and I'm going to alternate it about 6 inches apart with the golden variety. And these ones I've actually multi-sown the Charles Dowding way, so I put in 3 or 4 seeds per module, and yeah, just growing them as a little clump instead of individually. It worked well for me the other year, so try it again. You know what, this soil is so soft. Don't need my knife so much today. I'll do the other side when I get round there. Oh, it's got quite windy, so I've had to put my jumper on, which actually matches my raised bed. You can tell I've got a thing for the kind of terracotta orange, although this paint is actually the same as my shed, which is, what's it called? It's red cedar red. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this bed this year. I'm quite keen to see how it gets on. Have you got a shady part in your garden? Have you planted anything in it? Or have you built a new raised bed after this whole pandemic situation? Yeah, so we have quite a bit of beetroot, which is good because I do like to pickle it. And my dad is particularly keen on pickled beetroot as well. So it does make some good Christmas presents. As you can see by the roots, these have been wanting to go out for quite some time. After the beetroot, I'm going to plant my chard. This is the peppermint chard that's going to grow really bright pink stems. I mean, fluorescent pink. I can't wait to see them. So that's going to go in front of the spinach because I don't want it to be hiding those gorgeous stems. So spinach will go right at the back. Let's see how many I can cram in here. The spacing doesn't matter too much with things like chard the closer you space it, the smaller the leaves will be. The more spacing, you'll just get fewer but much bigger leaves. I actually prefer them when they're still quite a bit smaller. It's much more manageable and better for a salad. But you know, that's just down to preference, so I'm still going to pack these quite tight in this space. But I'm not going to plant all of them just in case a slug comes along and eats the lot, which could well happen. It's the risk of planting them out when they're still a little bit small and tender like this. Right, so that's my chard. I think I'm now going to put in my spinach. So this is a perpetual spinach, which means you can pick the outside leaves and then it'll just keep growing and growing and growing, and you'll be harvesting from it for at least a year before it goes to seed. Whoopsie! I've just tipped them everywhere. But again, they'll grow quite big, so I'm just going to space them about the same as the chard for now. I've actually got about 8 inches here at the back spare before I reach my supporting structure for the beans. I've chosen beans here for the back. So what I'm going to do is make a little drill. So that's just a shallow line in the bottom here, and I'm going to sow some radish seeds, and this variety is called Viola. It's a bright purple colour. Haven't grown it before, so I'm just going to take the seeds, and the soil's already a little bit damp by the way, and I'm just going to sprinkle them along the line all the way to the end. I mustn't forget that they're in here. Pop the spares back in case I need some more, and then just cover those over. So I've got some radish, and then for the peas at the back I've chosen a dwarf bean called Cannellino. I think it's a French variety. It was sent to me from an Instagram friend, and she said that they're one of the best beans that you can grow. So I've chosen purposely a dwarf variety because obviously I don't want it growing 6 or 8 feet tall when my supports are only about 4 to 5 foot. So I'm just going to make some little holes and drop 2 or 3 beans in below each of the sticks and in between as well. And another reason why I've chosen beans instead of peas down here is because the birds love to eat the foliage of my peas, so I always have to cover them. And I don't really like using netting or mesh or fleece when I don't have to. So by growing beans, hopefully they'll be a bit more protected. They don't really get eaten. I'm oversowing. It's good to oversow. Oh, I just missed the hole. There we go. So they're all in. I'll just cover them up, and yeah, hopefully they'll germinate in the next 7 days because it's going to be really hot next week. That's my salad bed all planted out now, and I really love it. I like the striking kind of colour combination that we've got going here. I'm looking forward to when those chard really bulk up and look extra pink. Looking forward to seeing how the beans do. Not sure if they'll be able to cope in the sort of shady conditions, we'll have to see, but I can always change it next year. But I do think this will forever be my salad bed because they're going to like it, I think. I'm feeling hopeful. Have you got a shady spot at home? If you have, you could also try growing things like carrots or leeks and kale. Kale should do pretty well in semi-shady conditions as well. Also broad beans, things like that. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys if you've got a shady spot and what grows well for you. All that's left to do now is for me to give this bed a good watering in so that those roots really sort of knuckle down into that soil and get growing. And yeah, that's it from me today. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you real soon.